Welcome back. This is an important lecture that gives you the big ideas on the way to think about um, stability of a variety of nuclei. We will get into the details later, but uh, the big picture is presented in this lecture. So earlier, we had looked at the binding energy per nucleon. So this is the y-axis, binding energy per nucleon, and we saw its variation as a function of mass number. We had rationalized this behavior based on two features. Coulombic repulsion is more long range compared to strong nuclear forces. Therefore, the Coulombic repulsion would go as z squared, whereas the short range strong nuclear forces uh, have attractive interaction. They interact only based on, let's say, the nearest neighbors. So that would go as z. So because of this variation, that is quadratic variation, this is a linear variation, both these things intersect and you have the greatest binding energy per nucleon to be somewhere here. So this is one feature of and variation in energy as a function of different nucleons. Another important graph is the following. So what we are plotting here is along the y-axis, we have the proton number. Along the x-axis is the neutron number. This is given by z, this is given by n. So what is indicated are the different stable nucleus as you change z and n. For the same z, if you have different neutron numbers, you have isotope. So what do you see here? So when, let's say, in this region, that is at small z and small n, this line is approximately 45 degrees. That means for a nucleus to be stable, you approximately have to have the same number of protons as the same number of neutrons. However, as the atomic number increases, that is, the proton number increases, what you see is that you have greater number of neutrons to have some stable nuclei. In a way, this is related to this behavior, but we'll come into this, we'll connect these things again in the later slides. But in this particular um, plot, what we want to understand is if the proton in a particular nuclei increases, that means the Coulombic repulsion in, in the nucleus increases. So you are in this region. So the nucleus will be unstable. And the way to get to stability is by ejecting a positron. So this is a symbol for positron. So too much of proton leads to instability. And the way to get to stability is by emitting a positron. On the other side, that is, you are in this side, that means you have more number of neutrons. And we had already mentioned that a neutron per se has more mass compared to that of um, proton. Uh, so if you have a lot of neutrons in the nucleus, one way to decrease the energy of the nucleus is when the proton converts to when the neutron converts to a proton and ejects a electron. So that is called beta emission. So beta minus is a symbol for emission of electron, so beta decay. So when you have more protons, um, again the nucleus is unstable and the nucleus will beta decay to increase the protons. In this case, when neutrons, when a particular neutron ejects a beta particle, that is an electron, it will get converted to proton. Therefore, the proton number increases. So, both these cases, there is too much of neutron or too much of proton leads to instability. So there is this narrow valley wherein you have the stable nucleus, stable configuration of nucleus. So there are many features. Okay, so we will not go into these features in this lecture, but we will build models which explains many features. That is, in some cases, there are a lot many um, uh, isotopes, and there are in some cases there are no isotopes. There are such features are present. For this, we need more detailed model. But the objective here is to just illustrate that both these cases, there is too much neutrons or too much proton, leads to instability. We can look at some simple systems so that we um, reinforce the way we want to be arguing. We had in the earlier lectures we had seen that a free neutron is unstable, right? That is, the if you have an isolated neutron, it will decay via emission of beta particle. That is, it will convert to a proton and an electron plus something else. But the main thing is it gets converted to proton and electron, right? Um, we are not looking into neutrinos and so on. So free neutron is unstable. When you take hydrogen, that is the simplest of system. Hydrogen has only proton and no neutron. So when you consider isotope of hydrogen, deuterium, so just to note, a passing note is that only the isotopes of hydrogen are given different names, right? Uh, we say hydrogen, which refers to only proton, no neutron. Deuterium has proton and one neutron. Tritium has one proton and two neutrons. Other isotopes are not given different names. You just indicate the atomic weight in other systems, but for hydrogen, these things are given different names. So you may ask, why is while free neutron is unstable, why is that a neutron is stabilized in a deuterium nucleus? Note that deuterium is not radioactive. It is a stable system, stable nucleus. Why is that? So one way to think about that is um, when you have deuterium, in addition to having one neutron, it also has a proton. So there is an attractive force, attractive interaction between the proton and the neutron, which stabilizes the neutron. Okay. So even though this is the case for a free neutron, but the neutron in the presence of proton is stabilized. And because neutron is a neutral particle, you're not really increasing Coulombic repulsion in this case. So, however, when you have tritium, you have two neutrons and one proton. Here, this is a case wherein the nucleus has too much um, neutrons. So in a way, you have already fallen into this region. So when you have too much neutrons, um, what happens is there's a beta decay, right? So in the beta decay, one of the neutron gets converted to a proton, the atomic number increases, so you get a helium um, by the beta decay of a tritium. So helium has two protons. Um, uh, so this is an isotope. When after beta decay, tritium gets converted to an isotope of helium with two proton and one neutron. So this is the way we can start rationalizing simple systems. So this kind of a qualitative logic is all right for rationalizing uh, these three systems. We need more detailed models for rationalizing other systems, which we will see in the next few lectures. So, this is an important figure. It is from a Wikipedia link. This very useful plot. So I'm emphasizing this. So this region is called the valley of stability. So what is that that is plotted? So along the y-axis we have number of protons. Along the x-axis we have number of neutrons. So when you have um, blue, that means you have more binding energy. As you move in this direction, your binding energy decreases. So, what are the broad features? The most stable elements are somewhere here. This is this is called the value of stability. So that is somewhere here. Um, and then these things are not that stable anyway, right? Again, these are not that stable anyway. So far away from this valley, either you go to this side or to this side, you are not very stable, and the most stable nuclei are in this region. And then um, the changes in binding energy is gradual, it is not a sudden change. So when you go from the valley where you see the most stable nucleus, as you move in this direction, gradually the binding energy changes. You get to fairly unstable, to get to stable nucleus with low binding energy. Likewise, as you go in this direction, you get to nuclei which are less and less stable. So this is an important plot. Um, this is another plot which shows a different feature um, in terms of the decay modes of unstable nuclei. So what is plotted here? What is indicated by black, these black dots and these lines indicate stable nuclei. All right. So you have, so this is the 45-degree line where the number of proton is equal to number of neutron. So the stable nuclei, when the atomic number is less, it is along this line. Okay, that is the number of proton is same as number of neutrons. But as you go to higher Z, the more number of protons, uh, the number of neutrons has to increase to stabilize the nuclei. So that is why we move away from this line to this region. Okay, that is one feature. Then what are the other features? So this means it is spontaneous fission. So these nuclei will show spontaneous fission. Um, this was already indicated. You have beta decay in this region. These are the ones that show beta decay. Or, I mean, in this region, you have more number of neutrons compared to protons. So either you eject a neutron or you show display beta decay, wherein one neutron gets converted to a proton. You have an increase in Z, right? So that is indicated in this region. These are the nuclei which can show that kind of behavior. On the other side, that is compared to the stable nuclei, if you have more protons, what might happen is you have a positron emission. We already mentioned that. Or this EC indicates electron capture. What happens in electron capture? So a electron is uh, captured by a proton and gets converted to a neutron. That is, a proton plus electron can get converted to um, neutron, so effectively decreasing the ratio of proton to neutron. So that can happen in this region. Then, in certain regions here, you may also have alpha decay, right? So, alpha decay is an emission process. I mean, qualitatively speaking, it's a method to uh, decrease both the atomic weight and atomic number. Alpha decay might occur. So, we will look at that because there is a dramatic um, uh, yeah, change in atomic number and atomic weight using alpha decay. We will look into the basis for alpha decay in a later lecture, but right now we are just presenting the big picture of different emissions. That's what we are trying to present in this lecture, in this particular slide. Again, there are two other features which are mentioned here. This refers to ejection of neutron. This refers to ejection of a proton. Okay, so all these things, um, based on this feature, based on um, the stable nuclei and what is in excess, whether we have excess of protons or excess of neutrons, gives you a broad trend on what are the decay modes available for an unstable nuclei. Another important feature is the half-life, right? So you the stable ones are again shown here. That is, they don't spontaneously decay, uh, and there are some elements which have a long lifetime even when they are not stable. Okay, so sometimes it's uh, longer than the age of universe. Okay, um, so that is also possible. Okay, so what you see is that um, this is a shorter lifetime. The lifetime keeps increasing in this direction. So what is important to understand is the further they are from this um, stable region, shorter is the lifetime. Okay, so that important trend is shown here. As you move away in this direction, your lifetime goes towards blue, or in this direction, it goes towards blue. Just away, if you're slightly away from the stable region, you have fairly high lifetime, long lifetime. Okay, so all these three features, that is the binding energy behavior, um, the decay modes, and trends in lifetime, are fairly important. Gives you a big picture or regarding the stability of nuclei as a function of Z and N. In the next lecture, we will look at another feature um, related to the energy required to separate the last nucleon, either it can be proton or nucleus. All these kinds of experimental facts helps you build models, and we will present these models in the next few lectures. So right now we are just presenting the experimental features, uh, which is going to help us in building the models. Thank you.